The sleek, metallic vessel descended through the swirling clouds of Vespera, its hull gleaming ominously against the eerie greenish hue of the planet's atmosphere. Inside, Lucas adjusted the straps of his gear, the familiar weight of his rifle resting against his chest. He could feel the tension in the cramped quarters of the shuttle, a mix of excitement and dread coursing through the veins of his fellow soldiers. They were a hardened team, seasoned by countless missions, yet the stories they'd heard about Vespera's hostile environment and its vicious tribes made even the most stoic among them uneasy. "Remember, we're here to gather intel," Sergeant Ramirez barked, his voice cutting through the anxious murmurs. "Stay sharp and stick to the plan. No heroics. We don't want to become a footnote in the history of this hellhole." Lucas nodded, his jaw clenched. He had been in many hostile territories before, but there was something about Vespera that felt different. Perhaps it was the way the planet seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the trees swaying as if whispering secrets to one another. As the shuttle finally broke free of the clouds and leveled off, Lucas caught a glimpse of the dense jungle below, its canopy a patchwork of vibrant greens and deep shadows. The landing was rough, sending a jolt through the cabin, and Lucas felt his heart race with adrenaline. The hatch opened with a hiss, and the team filed out, weapons drawn, scanning for any signs of movement. The air was thick and humid, carrying the scent of wet earth and unfamiliar flora. Lucas took a deep breath, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. "Let's set up a perimeter," he instructed, his voice steady despite the butterflies dancing in his stomach. "We'll split into pairs and head into the jungle. Stay in contact." As the team dispersed, Lucas paired up with his close friend, Sam. They moved cautiously, the sounds of the jungle engulfing them, rustling leaves, distant calls of strange creatures, and the occasional snap of a twig. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Do you think we'll run into any of the tribes?" Sam asked, glancing around nervously. "Hopefully not," Lucas replied, though he knew the reality of their mission. The tribes were fiercely protective of their territory, and any encounter could quickly escalate into violence. "Just keep your eyes open." As they ventured deeper into the foliage, Lucas's instincts sharpened. The jungle was alive, and every rustle felt like a warning. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye, a shadow darting between the trees. He motioned to Sam to halt. They listened, hearts pounding, as the sounds of the jungle faded momentarily. "Did you see that?" Lucas whispered, his gaze fixed on a nearby thicket. Sam nodded, his grip tightening around his weapon. Without warning, an agile figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, her skin a deep, shimmering green, adorned with tribal markings that glistened like the jungle itself. She moved with the grace of a predator, her eyes sharp and calculating as they locked onto Lucas's. "Stay back," he commanded, raising his weapon instinctively. But as he watched her, something in him hesitated. There was a strength in her stance, a defiance that stirred something within him. Nira, the huntress of the rival tribe, had never seen a human before. She had heard tales of their kind, fierce warriors who invaded their lands, but this one was different. He stood tall, his expression a mix of determination and wariness. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the world around them faded away. The jungle, with all its dangers, seemed to hold its breath. "Who are you?" Nira's voice was steady, filled with curiosity rather than hostility. "Lucas," he replied, lowering his weapon slightly, though his heart raced at the thought of what he was doing. "I'm not here to fight. Just gathering information." Nira tilted her head, studying him as if trying to decipher a puzzle. "You are trespassing on sacred ground. Your people have brought pain to my tribe." "I know," he said, feeling the weight of his mission settle heavily on his shoulders. "But I'm not like them. Before he could finish, a rustling from behind them broke the spell, and Lucas instinctively raised his weapon again, his instincts screaming at him to protect himself. Nira mirrored his movements, her eyes narrowing as she prepared to react. In that tense moment, they stood as enemies, yet something unspoken lingered in the air, a connection that neither fully understood. The jungle around them continued to pulse with life, unaware of the fragile thread of fate that had begun to weave between the human soldier and the alien huntress. The dense jungle of Vespera was alive with the sounds of creatures both familiar and foreign, a cacophony that contrasted sharply with the silence that hung in the air around Lucas. He stood a few paces away from where he had first encountered Nira, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. He had trained for years to be a soldier, to follow orders without question. Yet, the moment he locked eyes with the alien huntress, everything he had been taught felt irrelevant. "Lucas!" a voice hissed from behind him, snapping him back to reality. It was Tyler, one of his squadmates, his face a mask of concern. "What are you doing? You can't just wander off like this. It's dangerous." Lucas turned to face him, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I know what I'm doing, Tyler. I saw her. She's different. There's something about her." "Different? She's the enemy. You're risking everything for a moment's curiosity? We've got a job to do." Tyler's eyes darted around, as if expecting Nira to emerge from the foliage at any moment, bow drawn and ready to attack. "Maybe there's more to this than just loyalty to our side," Lucas replied, his voice low but firm. "What if we're being fed lies about them? What if they're not the monsters we think they are?" Tyler shook his head, incredulous. "You're not seriously considering this, are you? This isn't just about you and your fascination. This is about our survival." Lucas clenched his jaw, the weight of his squad's expectations pressing heavily on him. "I'm not saying I want to join them, Tyler. I just want to understand. There must be a reason for the hate between our peoples." Before Tyler could respond, another member of their team, Jenna, approached, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. "What's going on? You two look like you're about to come to blows." "Lucas is losing his mind," Tyler said, throwing his hands up in exasperation. "He thinks he can make friends with the enemy." "Maybe he's onto something," Jenna said, her brow furrowing. "We've been out here long enough to know that this war isn't black and white. I mean, look at the stories we've heard about the tribes. What if they aren't all true?" Lucas felt a flicker of hope. "Exactly. What if we could find common ground? If we could talk, maybe we could prevent more bloodshed." Tyler scoffed, crossing his arms. "And what happens if you end up dead because you're too busy playing diplomat? We've got orders, Lucas. We need to gather intel and report back. Not play nice with the locals." As the tension in the air thickened, Lucas felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He wanted to pursue the connection he felt with Nira, but he also understood the risk. The thought of returning to base with tales of an alien huntress wouldn't be welcomed. He'd be seen as a traitor, a liability. Meanwhile, Nira stood among her people, her heart heavy with the expectations placed upon her. The hunt had gone well, and her fellow tribesmen celebrated her prowess, but amidst the cheers and laughter, she felt a profound sense of isolation. They praised her, yet they did not see her, a skilled huntress yearning for something more than the confines of tribal life. "Come, Nira. Join us," called out one of the warriors, a broad-shouldered man with a wide grin. "You've earned your place among us tonight." "Thank you, Kale," she replied, forcing a smile. "But I need some time alone." As she slipped away from the celebration, her mind drifted back to the human soldier. Lucas's eyes, filled with a mix of fear and fascination, haunted her thoughts. She had never considered that an enemy could evoke such feelings. As she traversed the wooded paths, she felt a longing for freedom, not just from the expectations of her tribe but from the reality of their ongoing war. In the shadows of the jungle, Lucas was wrestling with his own desires. The connection he felt with Nira was undeniable, but the chasm between their worlds was daunting. He had to see her again, to explore this strange bond that interlaced their fates. Under the veil of the night sky, Lucas made his decision. Heart pounding, he slipped out of the makeshift barracks, determined to find Nira once more. The jungle, with its vibrant colors muted under the moonlight, felt both inviting and perilous. Each step he took echoed with the weight of his choices, but the thought of Nira drew him forward into the unknown. As he ventured deeper into the wilderness, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting could change everything. It was a risk, but perhaps, just perhaps, it was a risk worth taking. The night held promise, and within it lay the potential for understanding, connection, and something far greater than either of them had dared to dream. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the dense foliage of Vespera, Nira and Lucas found themselves in a secluded clearing. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming alien flora, a world so foreign yet strangely inviting to them both. Nira stood tall, her slender form poised with confidence, as she prepared to teach Lucas some essential survival skills that every inhabitant of Vespera needed to know. First, you must learn to move silently, Nira instructed, her voice low and melodic, a stark contrast to the surrounding cacophony of alien wildlife. She demonstrated by gliding effortlessly across the forest floor, her footsteps barely making a sound. Lucas watched in awe, captivated by her grace. He felt a stirring within him, an admiration that went beyond the physical. "Like this?" he asked, attempting to mimic her movement. He stumbled slightly over a gnarled root, his heavy boots thudding against the ground. Nira suppressed a laugh, the sound light and airy, but her eyes sparkled with encouragement. "You are too loud, human. Try to be lighter on your feet. Imagine you are a shadow." Lucas nodded, a grin breaking across his face. "A shadow, huh? I guess I need to practice my ghosting skills." He took a deep breath, focusing on the rhythm of his body, his instincts sharpening under her watchful gaze. As they practiced, Nira felt a warmth blooming in her chest. She had spent so long training to be the best huntress in her tribe, and now, here was Lucas, someone who challenged her in ways she hadn't anticipated. She could see the determination in his blue eyes, and it made her heart race. "Now, let's talk about the flora," Nira continued, her tone shifting to a more serious note. She knelt beside a vibrant plant with iridescent leaves. "This is Zilthra. It can be used to treat wounds, but you must be careful. The sap can be poisonous if ingested." Lucas leaned in closer, intrigued. "How do you know what's safe and what's not? There's so much out here." Nira met his gaze, her expression thoughtful. "Years of experience and listening to the elders. It's not just about survival, it's about understanding the balance of nature. Your people could learn from this." Lucas felt a pang of guilt at her words. "I know we've made mistakes. The way we exploit resources, it's reckless. I wish things were different." She smiled softly, a flicker of hope igniting in her heart. "Perhaps we can teach each other. You have knowledge of technology that I can only dream of. Imagine what we could accomplish together." Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the weight of their respective worlds felt lighter, as if they were two souls unburdened by the enmity of their tribes. But the moment was fleeting, shattered by the sudden rustle of leaves nearby. They snapped back to reality, instincts honed by their respective training kicking in. "Did you hear that?" Lucas whispered, his voice urgent. Nira nodded, her body tensing. "Stay low and quiet." She gestured for him to follow her lead as they crept toward the sound. As they approached, they found a group of humans, Lucas's comrades from his reconnaissance team, discussing something intently. "We can't trust them," one of them was saying, his voice harsh. "They're the enemy. We need to take them out before they become a real threat." Lucas's heart raced at their words. "They're planning something," he murmured to Nira, who looked equally alarmed. "We must warn my tribe," she replied, her voice urgent but calm. "If they think you're a traitor—" "I can't let that happen," he interrupted, determination flooding through him. "We need to find a way to stop this." As they retreated, Lucas felt a heavy weight settle on his shoulders. The bond they were forming was now entangled with dangerous implications. He couldn't shake the feeling that their worlds were on the brink of collision, and he was caught in the middle. That night, as they sat in a small clearing, the stars twinkling above them like distant gems, Lucas shared stories of Earth, of towering cities and vast oceans. Nira listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder. "It sounds beautiful, but I wish to see it one day," she whispered, her voice barely above the sound of the wind. He reached out, taking her hand in his, the warmth between them igniting a spark of hope. Together, we can make it happen. But first, we need to navigate this chaos. Nira squeezed his hand, her resolve strengthening. We will find a way. For both our peoples. In that moment, under the vast alien sky, their destinies intertwined, two souls determined to forge a path through the hostility that surrounded them. Lucas stormed into the makeshift command center, his heart pounding with anger and urgency. The air was thick with tension as his fellow soldiers, still high on adrenaline from the earlier confrontation, debated the implications of their recent decision. He could see the flickering screens displaying images of Vespera's jungles and maps marked with the locations of alien tribes. But none of that mattered to Lucas now. Nira was in danger, and he couldn't allow that betrayal to stand. What the hell were you thinking? Lucas spat, his voice low but seething. The eyes of his team turned to him, some filled with surprise, others with contempt. Corporal Harris, the soldier who had captured Nira, stood at the forefront, a smug grin plastered across his face. I was thinking about the mission, Lucas, Harris replied, crossing his arms defiantly. That alien was a liability. We can't trust them. They'll always be a threat to us. Lucas stepped closer, his fists clenched at his sides. A threat? Or a victim of your ignorance? Nira saved my life. She taught me skills that could keep us alive in this hellhole. You don't see the bigger picture. You're blinded by your emotions. Harris shot back, his voice rising. This is war. We can't afford to coddle the enemy. They're all savages. You know that, right? Lucas felt a surge of betrayal wash over him. It wasn't just Harris's words that cut deep, but the realization that some of his closest comrades could so easily dismiss Nira's humanity. You think this is just about us versus them? What about the conspiracy? What about the lives at stake? This isn't just a mission anymore. It's a chance to prevent a massacre. As the argument intensified, Lucas could see the doubt creeping into the eyes of some of his teammates. He needed to make them see the truth. We have to act quickly. If we don't save Nira and stop this faction from executing their plan, we could lose everything. Not just her, but potentially both of our worlds. We can't let our hatred dictate our actions. The room fell silent, the weight of Lucas's words hanging in the air. It was Sergeant Lewis who finally broke the silence, his expression shifting from skepticism to contemplation. What do you propose we do, Lucas? Lucas took a deep breath, feeling the tide of the conversation shift in his favor. We need to infiltrate that prison camp where they're holding Nira. I'll go in alone if I have to, but I'd rather have backup. We need to get her out and gather intel on this faction before it's too late. Harris scoffed, but Lucas ignored him, locking eyes with Lewis. The sergeant nodded slowly. All right, we'll back you up, but we need a solid plan. We can't afford to lose more men. As night fell over Vespera, the air was charged with a different kind of tension. Lucas crouched low in the underbrush, his heart racing as he surveyed the prison camp, a makeshift fortress surrounded by electrified fences and guarded by armed sentries. The shadows danced in the flickering light of the campfires, and the distant howl of alien creatures reminded him of the danger lurking beyond the perimeter. Using the skills Nira had taught him, Lucas moved silently, avoiding the patrols. His mind raced with thoughts of her, wondering how she was holding up in that place. He remembered her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke of her tribe's traditions. He could not let those memories be extinguished. As he approached the camp, he spotted a familiar figure, a guard whose movements he recognized from his earlier encounters. Lucas had learned to read the guards' patterns, to know when they were most distracted. Timing was everything. He slipped past the first line of defense and made his way toward the central area where prisoners were held. The stench of sweat and fear hung in the air, and Lucas felt a knot of dread in his stomach. He had to find Nira. Finally, he reached the holding cells. The sight made his heart ache. The cramped, dark space echoed with the sounds of despair. Just as he spotted Nira's cell, he heard footsteps approaching. Lucas pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath as two guards passed, their voices a harsh whisper. "Do you think they'll really use her as a bargaining chip?" one asked, his tone dripping with disdain. "Yeah. The humans think they can control us, but they'll learn. We'll show them who's in charge," the other replied with a cruel laugh. Lucas clenched his jaw, anger boiling within him. He couldn't allow Nira to be used like that. He waited until the guards were out of sight before slipping into the shadows of the cell area. There she was, Nira, bound but defiant, her fierce gaze meeting his. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived as he noticed the bruises on her arms and the dirt smudged across her face. "Nira," he whispered urgently, inching closer. "I'm here to get you out." Her eyes brightened, but there was also a flicker of concern. "Lucas, it's dangerous. They're expecting a rescue. Then we'll have to be quicker than they think," he replied, his heart racing. Just as he reached for the lock, the ground shook beneath them, and a chorus of shouts erupted outside. An ambush was underway. Before he could react, the door to the cell burst open, and armed figures flooded in, their intent clear. Lucas and Nira were trapped, but they were not alone in their fight. The battle for their lives was just beginning. As the dust settled from the chaotic battle, Lucas and Nira found themselves sprinting through the dense underbrush of Vespera, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Their hearts raced in unison, adrenaline coursing through their veins as they desperately sought refuge. The jungle, once a fierce battleground, now felt like a sanctuary as they stumbled upon a hidden cave, its mouth obscured by thick vines and foliage. "Quick, this way," Lucas urged, pulling Nira into the cave just as a distant shout reverberated through the trees. Nira pressed against the cool rock wall, her breath coming in quick gasps. "Do you think they saw us?" she whispered, her voice a mix of fear and determination. "I don't know. We need to be quiet and stay low." Lucas crouched beside her, their shoulders brushing against each other. The dark cave enveloped them, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. In the dim light, he turned to her, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. "Nira, are you okay?" She nodded, though her brow furrowed with concern. "We have to find a way out of this. If they catch us," her voice trailed off, the implication hanging heavily in the air. Lucas reached out, taking her hand in his. "They won't catch us. I promise." The warmth of her skin against his ignited a spark of hope amidst the fear. Their fingers intertwined, and in that moment, the world outside faded away. As they sat in the cave, the weight of their situation pressed down on them, but so did the burgeoning connection that had blossomed between them. Lucas felt an overwhelming urge to express what had been building in his heart since their first encounter. "Nira, I know this is all so sudden, and everything is against us, but I don't want to lose you. Not now, not ever." Nira looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "I feel the same way, Lucas. You are not like the others. You see me for who I am, not just as a huntress of my tribe. I never thought I could feel this way about a human. There's something special about you," he replied, his voice soft yet earnest. "You've shown me a side of this world I never knew existed. We've fought together, and I've never felt more alive than when I'm with you." Tears glistened in Nira's eyes as she squeezed his hand. "We have to survive this, not just for ourselves but for our people. There's something bigger at play here." As if responding to her words, a faint glow emanated from the depths of the cave, drawing their attention. They cautiously got to their feet, curiosity piqued. "What is that?" Lucas murmured, leading Nira further into the cave. As they ventured deeper, the glow intensified, revealing intricate carvings along the walls. Symbols and images depicted scenes of unity and harmony between their two races, humans and Vesperans working together, sharing knowledge, and thriving in peace. "Look!" Nira exclaimed, pointing to a depiction of two figures, one human and one Vesperan, standing side by side. This is us." Lucas's heart raced as he traced the carvings with his fingers. "It's like a history book, but one we never knew existed. What does it mean?" Nira studied the images, her brow furrowing in concentration. It suggests that our tribes were once united, before something tore us apart. Perhaps the conflict we've been fighting is based on lies. Suddenly, a realization washed over them, a powerful connection forming in their minds. If they were united, there must be a way to bring us back together, Lucas said, excitement bubbling within him. Maybe our love is the key to healing this rift? Yes, Nira replied, her voice filled with conviction. If we can uncover the truth, we can show our people that we are not enemies. We have to find a way to communicate this to them. The weight of their discovery settled between them, a mixture of hope and fear. They were standing at a crossroads that could change everything. The cave pulsed with energy, as if recognizing the significance of their bond. We need to figure out how to use this knowledge, Lucas said, determination etched on his face. Together, we can unite our tribes. Nira nodded, her gaze unwavering. Together. She leaned in closer, their foreheads touching, an unspoken promise passing between them. In that moment, they understood that their love was not just a personal connection, it was a potential catalyst for peace in a world torn apart by hatred. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to rewrite the fate of their peoples. As Lucas and Nira crouched in the dim light of the cave, their hearts raced with the urgency of their mission. The ancient alien technology pulsed softly beside them, a mysterious relic that held the potential to alter the fate of their warring tribes. They exchanged determined glances, fully aware that the knowledge they had stumbled upon could unite their people, or destroy them. We need to rally our tribes, Lucas said, his voice low but intense. If we can show them the truth, they might listen. We can't let this opportunity slip away. Nira nodded, her brow furrowed with concentration. But how do we convince them? They've only known conflict and hatred. Trust is a foreign concept between our peoples. Before Lucas could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. The faint light from the technology flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, the cave entrance erupted with a cacophony of shouts and gunfire. A group of soldiers from Lucas's team, accompanied by alien warriors seeking to maintain their dominance, stormed into the cave. Lucas! Nira! One of the soldiers shouted, his weapon raised. Get away from that thing. It's dangerous. Nira instinctively reached for her bow, but Lucas placed a hand on her arm, his eyes wide. Wait. We can talk. Before he could finish, a wild shot rang out, ricocheting off the cave wall. The moment shattered as everyone froze, the air thick with tension and hostility. Lucas's heart pounded in his chest as he assessed the scene. He couldn't allow violence to erupt here, not when they had a chance for peace. Listen! Lucas shouted, stepping forward, hands raised in surrender. We don't have to fight. We found something that can help us. This technology. Help us? Another soldier scoffed, stepping closer, eyes narrowed. You think we'll trust you after everything? You're a traitor to your kind. Nira's grip tightened on her bow, her instincts screaming at her to defend their position. We are not enemies, she declared, her voice clear and strong. We have learned the truth about our tribes, about the lies that have kept us apart. We can end this conflict together. The soldiers hesitated, glancing at one another with uncertainty. Just then, the alien technology pulsed brighter, illuminating the cave. It hummed, and an ethereal energy enveloped Lucas and Nira, drawing everyone's attention. What's happening? One of the warriors whispered, fear creeping into his voice. With a surge of power, the technology emitted a massive energy wave that washed over the soldiers and the alien warriors alike. Instantly, images flickered in the air, showing the ancient history of their peoples. Scenes of unity, love, and collaboration interspersed with images of the divisions and conflicts that had followed. Look! Lucas exclaimed, awe filling his voice as he watched the scenes unfold. This is our past. We were once one people. Nira stepped forward, her voice steady and unwavering. This technology is showing us the truth. We were manipulated into fighting each other, but we have the chance to change that. Stunned silence enveloped the cave as the soldiers and aliens absorbed the revelation. The energy wave continued to pulse, revealing more truths about their shared history, forging connections that had long been forgotten. "Can it be true?" one of the human soldiers murmured, glancing at Nira. "Can we really trust the words of an alien?" "Trust is built on understanding," Nira replied, her voice filled with conviction. "We can choose to repeat the mistakes of the past, or we can step into a new era together." As the energy faded, an ethereal presence emerged from the technology, a sentient being that shimmered with light. It spoke with a voice that resonated deep within their hearts, echoing the bond that had formed between Lucas and Nira. "Your love has awakened me," it said, each word carrying the weight of ages. "You are the key to restoring peace between your peoples. Lead them into a future where love conquers fear." Lucas and Nira exchanged a glance, their hearts pounding with the enormity of what was being asked of them. In that moment they understood the path laid before them. They were not just soldiers or huntresses, they were ambassadors of hope, destined to bridge the chasm that had divided their worlds. "Together," Lucas said, taking Nira's hand, "we will show them what we can become." "Yes," Nira affirmed, her eyes shining with determination. "We will lead them to a new beginning." With the energy of the ancient technology still buzzing around them, they stepped forward, ready to face their tribes and change the course of history forever. In that hostile alien world, love had sparked a revolution, proving that even in the darkest of times, hope could shine through.